Welcome to British Focus. Today, we dive into Labour's ambitious yet controversial net zero mission under Ed Miliband. The British public has raised serious concerns, and now Miliband himself has faced tough questions at the Energy Security and Net Zero Committee. His response? Panic, hesitation, and a flood of contradictions. Is this the leadership Britain needs? Watch closely and judge for yourself. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get into the video.
So when you're doing the land use framework, we've got that target of 2030, which is in planning terms round the corner. How do you anticipate being able to establish a land use framework which has got the public consent and support of people about how we agree what land is used for what, in order for us to be able to reach those targets and ensure that we are using nature appropriately to be able to mitigate climate change? Otherwise, what I'm concerned about is it will be like putting loads of clean energy projects in to mitigate climate change, when actually we might have been able to leave some of that land free to mitigate climate change just as well, or maybe even better.
I mean, let me just sort of deal with the two parts, I think, to the question. First, on the land use framework, this is an incredibly important piece of work that my colleague Steve Reed has embarked upon, setting out, I think clearly, for the first time, the role of farming and agriculture, the role of nature restoration, the role of, for example, renewable energy. And I think that is a very important framework, partly, if I'm frank with you, to give reassurance to people. And some of the scare stories there are, which I think are very wide of the mark, for example, about solar and the use of solar, because solar is, on any, even the most ambitious scenario, is going to be a very marginal part of the use of land, and certainly doesn't imperil our food security. So I think as a sort of framework, what Steve has embarked upon is very, very important. I just want to come straight to your issue of public consent, though, because I think it is really, really important to confront it head on. The case we're making to people is threefold, and it a little bit speaks to my answer to Josh. Look, first of all, if we don't build this infrastructure, we are deeply vulnerable as a country to a repeat of the cost of living crisis that we have seen. And it's incredible how quickly, I don't think the British people forget, but in a way, Westminster can forget this, and people are this still stalks people's lives today, the cost of living crisis. So unless we do this, we remain vulnerable to the fossil fuel market. Secondly, the biggest threat to the countryside, it speaks to the conversation with Sir Christopher, is the climate crisis. That is the biggest threat. It's not some pylons. It's not solar farms. The biggest threat to the countryside is the climate crisis. And thirdly, Polly, I think also it is important. I just want to re-emphasize what I said to Josh. We do need a bargain with people where we say, if you host this clean energy infrastructure, you will see benefit. You will see benefit to your community. And I actually think there is a big majority of people who will come with us on this. Of course, people worry about these things, and of course, people need to have a say, but I think we can bring people with us.
I'm being nudged by the chair to move on to questions around solar and renewables. Now, solar energy...
Before you do, we'll follow up in writing on any number of undoubtedly, so we can pick your...
Of course, in me detail. That's absolutely fine.
Polly.
As you'll be aware, Solar Energy UK has pressed for a solar target range of up to 60 gigawatts to drive growth and send positive signals to investors. Why, therefore, have you set a lower range of 45 to 47 gigawatts when this has already been heavily criticised by the industry?
I think it's really important to... I'll come to that specific question in a second. I think it's really important to say that what we're doing in this document is quite path-breaking, because what we're actually doing is setting out for the first time the energy mix we need to meet clean power. Now, I don't want to be overly party political in this, but that wasn't done before. And the reason why that is so important is because unless we do that, how are people, business, industry, others going to sort of plan for what the system looks like? And once we have those ranges in place, and we are putting them in place, we then will make sure that the grid, which is frankly a massive problem, as you will know at the moment, the planning system, the skills, the supply chains are in place to meet the target. So it's it's what I call plan and build, not neglect and delay. Now come to your solar issue. The action plan range is 45 to 47 gigawatts of solar. It's important to say that there's some solar that is outside this. So NESO's work with the distribution network operators suggests a further 9 to 10 gigawatts of rooftop solar projects which could be on top of this. So actually, the range that we're talking about is a sort of larger number than the 45 to 47 headline. But
just to clarify, that's in some ways the 45 to 47 is a floor,
exactly,
rather than a target. Well, how do you make that?
And it would
make
just
that
be,
a reality?
It is worth also saying that even the floor will involve almost trebling the amount of solar power from today. So we're talking about a big increase. In answer to your how do we make this a reality? Well, look, this is one of the issues, and it's something I get asked about a lot by people. This is something we're working on with MHCLG, which is when it comes to the Future Home Standard, making sure that, for example, solar plays a really, really important role. And those discussions are carrying on in government, and I know there is real enthusiasm for this in MHCLG. So, and we've got our solar task force, as you will know, Polly, which is working on all of these issues. I'm incredibly excited about what we can do in terms of solar. Not just ground-mounted solar, but also a real rooftop revolution.
Okay, well, the developers say that your plan is wildly unrealistic in relying on the distribution networks to deliver that 75% of solar capacity. How much have you consulted with industry on this?
Well, we're absolutely hand in glove with industry because they're in our solar task force. And this is something which the previous government was working on, but I wanted to make sure that we were at the maximal end of ambition when it came to solar, and that is the work we're embarked upon, and in the coming months we'll publish our solar roadmap as part of that.
I think we'll probably want to know a little bit more about why you've decided that distribution networks would be the people to deliver that 75% of solar capacity when the developers think that's unrealistic. So, I mean, we can write further on that, I think, can't we?
We can. I mean, I hear from developers who are being told it's years before they can turn their solar arrays on. Well, because of the distribution network being unable to take the capacity. So,
I mean, look, I think there is a broader point here, which I just want to sort of touch upon, which is the grid delays that we've got in general are enormous, and that's because we had a first come first served system, and we've ended up with more than 700 gigawatts of capacity for queuing up in the system, and lots of capacity which actually isn't needed for 2030. And so I think it's really, really important the committee understands this. We're doing something quite different, which we're being much more intentional about this. We're saying, what is the mix we need, including by region, to meet this 2030 clean power target, and how do we make it happen? We've moved from a very chaotic, frankly, first come first served approach, which wasn't really serving anyone, and was producing massive, I think is it 70 months average waiting time in relation to queuing, up massively, up 4 or 5-fold in the last few years, to a much more intentional. Now, some people will therefore have to wait their turn, and I'm afraid that is sort of tough because we have a national interest here.
I'm really interested in that intentional approach, because it is obviously very different from what you've done before. But some people have said that your deployment targets for renewables effectively ban certain technologies from connecting to large parts of the grid. I mean, for example, there's a lot of opportunity, developers would say, for solar in Lincolnshire, but they've been told that it's not going to happen there. Are you concerned about losing investor confidence because developers are going to have to write off projects that they've been working on?
Well, look, that is certainly not what we're. I don't believe that's what's going to happen. I know you had Fintan Sly before the committee on this, and some of the concerns that there were in the solar industry, I think, have been reassurance has been provided in terms of some of the grandfathering that there has been. But look, inevitably, if you are reordering we could decide not to reorder the queue, and I know you're not suggesting this, but we could just leave this in place, and then frankly we won't meet the targets we have. or we can have a grid system that actually serves the country properly and a queuing system that serves the country properly. That is the decision that we've made. And inevitably, you'll get people making the case for their own technologies. That's totally understandable. And obviously, the dialogue with all of the industries is really important.
Labour's handling of the net zero policy has exposed deep flaws in their governance. Ed Miliband's hesitant and contradictory responses only add to public concerns. How can a government push forward such drastic policies without a clear, confident plan? The British people deserve better leadership. Do you think Labour is fit to govern? Like this video if you agree and share your thoughts in the comments. Other news, let's take a look. Labour has once again enraged British farmers by imposing an inheritance tax on farms worth over £1 million. The farming community is fighting back, demanding a U-turn on this controversial policy. Recently, a heated discussion took place in Westminster Hall, where Conservative MP Robert Peter more exposed Labour's hypocrisy and failures. Watch this clip to see how he dismantled their argument.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. So here we are again. As we speak, thousands of farmers are once again rallying outside the gates of this building. Over the past 6 months, our farmers have repeatedly been told by this Labour government that their way of life is expendable, that their hard work, their sacrifice, their future can simply be priced up and taken away. So is it any wonder why our farmers have shown up in such vast numbers again today? And make no mistake, Mr. Chairman, it is not just our farmers outside these gates. Across the country, more than 148,000 people have signed the petition because they know, just as we do on these benches, that the family farm tax is wrong. It is vindictive and it must be scrapped now. So I use this opportunity whilst talking about the petition to thank the Honourable Member for South Norfolk for leading this petition's debate. But I have to say, Dr. Murison, that I believe that he did a staunch disservice to those petitioners who put their faith in him to lead this debate by not actually forming any opinion based on the strong arguments that he absolutely communicated, but didn't form an opinion. Just a mere spokesman, not using his opportunity in this debate to voice properly their concerns. And I must say, what an image for our farming community to take away from today's debate. Where on earth is the Secretary of State for DEFRA? We have the Shadow Secretary of State sat beside me. Where on earth is the Farming Minister? Absent. And what message does it send that the Labour Party have clearly filled the benches up on the other side of this House, but only 4 members of the Labour Party spoke in this debate, despite having an opportunity to voice their concerns in this petitions debate, which effectively is a 3-hour debate, of which, Mr. Chairman, all 5 of them that spoke voted against scrapping the family farm tax when we brought the motion to the House last time. So this is probably one of the most important debates that we can have on this issue, but yet once again, those with responsibility for rural areas and our farmers are missing in action. Indeed, Mr. Chairman, there is Labour members on the other side of the House that have turned up but not even contributed in this debate, yet representing such vast, large rural constituencies. So where is this government that claims to be on the side of rural Britain? Because if they had actually visited some of their farming communities, they would know just how damaging their choice is to implement the family farm tax is on our farming community. They may have had some of the devastating conversations that I, and indeed many on this side of the House have had, including the Shadow Secretary of State, have had on this issue. And I would like to go through and share some of them. Mr. Chairman, just last week I was in Northamptonshire and I met George. George has worked on his farm all of his life, and he is nearly in his 80s. And he, right now, unfortunately, is extremely ill. He knows, through his diagnosis, that he hasn't got long to live, but he isn't sure right now as I speak if he'll live beyond April 26. He knows that should he pass away before April 26, his IHT bill will be 0. But if he passes away after April 26, his tax bill to his family will be well over £1 million, a debt which his family simply cannot sustain. Now, Mr. Chairman, taking his own life was an option which was put forward to me. Mr. Chairman, these are horrific choices, unthinkable amounts of pressure for any individuals or families to be put under, never mind some of the most vulnerable in our society, and I will give way.
He was giving a very powerful speech. It's true that George was given no notice, was he? No ability to plan for this absolute and important impact on his life and everything he's worked for. But isn't it worse than that? Because explicitly he relied on a promise not to do this, and that makes it particularly unforgivable.
And I could not agree more. I will just answer this point before giving way. I cannot agree more with the point that has just been made by my right honourable friend, because what the electorate was sold was false promises in the run-up to the general election. They were specifically told that this Labour government would not change agricultural property relief, but that is exactly what they have done. So I will ask the Minister, how will he communicate with George? What does he tell George based on the promises that were given in the run-up to the general election? And will he acknowledge, for I can't believe how many times I have asked this, will the government commit to recording suicide statistics across the farming sector as we move closer to April 26? And if the Minister is so determined to carry on with his family farming death tax, will the Minister at least look at changing the abruptness of this tax's implementation to protect the most vulnerable in our farming community? It cannot just be right that this government is forcing people into these decisions to make.
Labour's inheritance tax on farms is yet another example of their disregard for rural Britain. The government promised stability, yet their policies are pushing hard-working farmers to the brink, forcing impossible choices on families who have cultivated this land for generations. Their absence in key debates and failure to address real concerns only reinforce the growing frustration across the country. Do you think Labour is the worst government in UK history? Like this video if you agree and share your thoughts in the comments.